guys, so I'm back again with my series video. I have my notebook out. I don't do any fancy sort of reading trackers other people do, but like for last year I just kind of put how many books I plan to read and then cross them off with that year I did 3 and last year. This year I've just gone with a colour per month, so January, February and green for March. So yeah, we're going to go through all of my series, what I finished and what I haven't. I do have them listed, so this may take a moment. Series number 1 on the list is Twilight. I never went through the Twihard phase in my teens. Guilty pleasure movies, I will admit, but never read the books. I do only have 2 to read. I have Breaking Dawn and Midnight Sun. Apart from that, I am caught up, so but they're both hefty books, and with the slump I was in right up until the beginning of February, very intimidating. Next up then is the Last Hour series by Cassandra Clare. I did recently get my copy from Waterstones of Chain of Thorns, and I already own Chain of Iron. I have read Chain of Gold. It was a 3 stars. It's kind of average for me. I loved the Infernal Devices, so I was like, the chance to see those characters again and see more of their lives and the kids sounded so exciting. But the first book, apart from some scenes, you know, that library scene between James and I can't remember it now, but it's been a while. And then the Mortal Instruments, I am going through Cassandra Clare's work and reading them in chronological order of the story. So with all the short stories, so like the Bane Chronicles and all that, and I'm currently up to The Last Hours. Then after that is more short stories, the Mortal Instruments and the Dark Artifices series. Lord of the Rings. I've read The Hobbit, I've read The Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers. All I have left is Return of the King. But the books are so dry compared to the movies that I haven't yet forced myself to finish Lord of the Rings. The Band by Nicholas Eames. I have read Kings of the Wild like 3 times, but I've never gone on to read Bloody Rose, and there are rumours about that we are getting a 3rd book in that universe, so need to catch up with that. The Infinity Cycle by Adam Silvera. Now, I haven't heard a lot about this series, but I have read book 1, I do own book 2, and I don't know if we're going to get more, if there is more coming. I have no idea. I haven't checked up on it in a while, but I do intend to at least catch up with the series, especially since the first To Die at the End came out, and I'm obviously going to be reading that. The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. I think I've only got 2 books left in this series, but for some reason I binged read like the first 4 and stopped, so I need to finish those. The Paladin Prophecy by Mark Frost. Now, I read the Paladin Prophecy and actually really enjoyed it. Found it was a series and then never continued, so I will be going back to reread the Paladin Prophecy and finish that series. Now, this next one is really controversial for me, The Witcher. Now, I have issues with this. I read the 2 short story collections and book 1 of The Witcher, and the way the writing changed between the short stories and the actual first novel really threw me off. Like, the short story collections were fun, they were interesting and really easy to read, and then I got to book 1 and the writing was dry and slow, and it took me forever to finish it. I do own the rest of the Witcher series, and I own Tower of Fools, the first book in his new series. And I have no idea if I'm planning to read them. Like, I've heard people say The Witcher gets better, and I do like the show. Not so much now that Henry Cavill isn't going to be in it, but we like the show. The short story collections were great, but I'm not sure about the actual novel. So if anyone has actually read The Witcher in its entirety, or Tower of Fools, can you let me know if the writing gets better? Like, is it still really dry and slow, or does it actually get better? Nemesis by Brendan Reeks. I read Nemesis, really enjoyed it, and I own Genesis and Chrysalis, so I will be getting to those. Another controversial series, The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. Now, I've read Interview with the Vampire and The Vampire Lestat. Really enjoyed them both. I tried to get into Queen of the Damned around the new year, and failed spectacularly, so I put it down. I will finish this series because I love the first two books. The movie is one of my guilty pleasure movies. I absolutely adore it. But it's a long series. Another long series, The Expanse by James S.A. Corey. I have read The Butcher of Anderson Station and Leviathan Wakes. I do own Caliban's War and the third book, so I will be getting back into that. Again, it's a long series, very hard sci-fi, so requires some brain power to get through. The Black Dagger Brotherhood by J.R. Ward. I've read 5 books so far. This series, I think, is currently standing at 29 or 30 books, so it's hefty. But the books, despite looking quite long, I can fly through 1 or 2 in a couple of days. So I tend to binge read a few, take a break from the series, binge read a few. So my aim this year is to get at least halfway through the series, so to around book 15. That's not including the short stories. I will read the short stories. Either if I can get them in between where they're supposed to go, or if I can't, I would just find them and read them after. The Camelot Rising series, I can't remember who it is by, but I read the Guinevere Deception, and it actually surprised me. I enjoyed it a lot, so I will be reading the other 2 books. The Vicious Fairy series, I think I have 2 books left in that. Smutty with Faye. What can I say? I'm an absolute bugger for smut. Under Mr. Nolan's Bed by Selena Kay. I have read Temptation, and I do own the other 2 on my Kindle. They will be coming soon. Now, this is one that poses problems for me, because I loved the first book, hated the second, and I so want to pick up the third book to see how it ends, but I don't know if I can justify doing it. That's Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. I loved the first book, the audiobook as well. Halter Graham is the best audiobook narrator for this kind of book. But the big thing about book 2 that really spoiled the thing for me was I hated the romance. Like, I'm all good for a sapphic FF romance. Found that. It was the fact it was between Mia and Ash. Like, after everything that Ash did in the first book, I couldn't get on board with it. I couldn't. And every time she appeared, I wanted to hurl the book across the room. And I have diligently avoided spoilers for Dark Dawn for a very long time. But I did read Empire of the Vampire, and I loved it. It was great. I do agree with most people that he missed an opportunity for a really great queer romance, but it didn't spoil my enjoyment of the book at all. Despite being like 800 pages long, I flew through it in like 2 days. So I don't know. The Merciful Crow series by Margaret Owens. I have ARCs, both books, The Faithless Hawk and The Merciful Crow. I've read The Merciful Crow, really enjoyed it, loved the magic system, it was really unique, enjoyed it, and then just never picked up The Faithless Hawk. I don't know why, I just never did. So that's only a duology, so I will be getting that out of the way. Sovereign by Josie Jaffery. Now, she's an indie author. I really enjoyed her works. I read the first book in the series. I have the other two and a couple of her other books, Wolf in the Water, and a couple of others, so I will be getting to those. I've given up on the Immortal Warrior series for now. They are smutty retellings of fairy tales and just a bunch of other things with mythology and folklore. If I'm ever in the mood for that, I will come back and finish them, but as of right now, there's a bunch of other things I want to read more. Harem of Hearts. Now, I've read 2 of the 4 books. I am halfway through. I did get about 20% into book 3 before I put it down, and then just life happened and I never picked it up again. So, I will go back to that, obviously, when I'm in the mood for that. But yeah, as of right now, I'm halfway through. I do intend to finish it, whether it's going to happen this year, we shall see. Now this one I'm kicking myself for, and it's not one series, it's multiple series, and it's The First Law Universe by Joe Abercrombie. I read The Blade itself in 2019, 2020, and I loved it. It was amazing. I loved Gloctus so much. He's amazing. I do own the rest of the original First Law trilogy, and then 2 of the standalone books in the First Law universe. So I have books 1 to 5 in the First Law universe, and they are hefty. So I just never went back and picked them up, but I really should, because everyone has been raving about other series in the First Law universe that I cannot read until I have read the other books, because there are spoilers and I just need to finish it. I have The Wickery. Again, I can't remember who half of the other by, I've just written down the series name. I've not read any books in that, but it's been on my TBR for forever. So I will get to that at some point. Crossfire by Sylvia Day. Obviously I've read 2 books. Book 3 is on my TBR for March. That only leaves me 2. So I will probably finish the Crossfire series before the end of the year. The Scythe series by Neil Shusterman. Now, I am kicking myself over this because I've read Scythe and I've read Thunderhead, and I really enjoyed both. And I own The Toll and Gleanings, which is the short stories set in the Scythe universe or something or other. I saw it in Waterstone, so I was like, must have it. I never finished them. So I think The Toll is like, it's behind me somewhere on my shelf. So yes, Scythe will be finished this year. Then the Anita Blake series by Laurel K. Hamilton. At the minute I am 7 books in. Again, like the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, it's a very long series, and Laurel K. Hamilton has announced that we're getting 2 new books in the Anita Blake universe, which would be 29 and 30 or 30 and 31. I'm not sure. I am buddy reading this series with a group of people over on Discord, and I am currently something like 4 books behind, so I do have to get to like book 10 or 11 this month, because we typically read around 1 book a month, So if I can catch up in March, for the rest of the year, then it's about another 8 books, which will take me to about 1920 in the series. So a good chunk we will finish this year, and then I will complete the series to where it is next year. But she's still publishing books in this universe, so I'm not sure. But the last one at the minute will come out in, I think she said April 2024, somewhere around there. No, it was March 2023 and then November 2023. So by the end of this year, the series will be up to date or complete. I'm not sure. The Wicked series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now, I know I said I'd stay away from Jennifer Armentrout for good, but someone said that based on liking some Fae books, but not all, this, give it a try. Did, and I actually really enjoyed it, and the more mature aspects of the relationship, but I haven't finished it. 3 books. Just never finished it. Fire and Thorns, or The Girl of Fire and Thorns by Rae Carson. I've read the 3 short stories and book 1. I only have book 2 and book 3 left. That is becoming a pattern, alarmingly. Next up then is the Dune universe by Frank Herbert. Now, Dune isn't for everyone. It's very hard, classic sci-fi. But I read the original Dune trilogy, so I read Dune, Dune Messiah, and Children of Dune. I really enjoyed them all. And I own the next 3 books, so The God Emperor of Dune, something else, and then Chapter House Dune. So I own books 4, 5, and 6, and I plan on reading the extended universe. So that's all the published books, so I'm not going to finish that this year because they are lengthy and quite dense to read. The audiobooks do help. If anyone is scared of getting into Dune, get the audiobooks because they really help. Another long, dense series that I own 4 books of and haven't yet touched it is Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. But since the TV show came out, and a lot of people have been reading the books, people are getting hyped. So I will at least start that this year. I will read Eye of the World this year. The Lady Trent series by Marie Brennan. I'm 2 books in. I plan to read book 3 this month. That only leaves 3. Well, technically 2 in the original series, and then another one came out a bit later, but I am including book 6. Now, I've got the One of Us series by Karen M. Manastone. I know there's One of Us is Lying, One of Us is Next, and there's another one. So I think there's 3 at the minute. I read One of Us is Next. I really enjoyed it. No, One of Us is Lying. I really enjoyed it. I own One of Us is Next, as well as a couple of other Karen M. Manas books. 2 Can Keep a Secret and The Cousin. So I will be getting to that. The Sirena Legacy by Anna Banks. I only have Of Neptune left, and that is on my TBR for this month, so I will be able to cross that off. So far, none of these series are finished. These are all ongoing. I haven't got to one series that's finished yet. The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne, I own on 4, and I own The Shadow of the Gods and The Hunger of the Gods. Not gotten to a single one of either of those series yet, but I will. Probably I'm going to go into Shadow of the Gods first because I know the series is unfinished and there's only 2 books. That's less intimidating than 4 really hefty books. So, the Greta Helsing series, I can't remember the author's name for the life of me, but I read book 1 and I really enjoyed it. It was really funny, just really interesting to read about a supernatural doctor. And I have the other 2 books on my Kindle, so I will be getting to those. The Fetch Phillips series. Now, I read, I can't remember what it's called. I know the other two books are Dead Man in the Ditch and One Foot in the Fade. Can't remember the name of the first book. I read that. It was okay, wasn't my kind of thing really, but I'm interested to see where it's going because it was recommended by Holly Hart's Books, which is, she is up there as one of my favourite booktubers for fantasy and sci-fi recommendations, especially ones that can be underhyped or more indie. So I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt with this one, because she did say the first book is kind of hit or miss, but then Dead Man in a Ditch and One Foot in the Fade are really good, so I will get to those. Then I got some old school fantasy with the Time Quartet, so A Wrinkle in Time being the first book. It was weird, but I kind of liked it. At the time I was unsure whether I was going to continue with the series, but they are really short, so I will probably give at least book 2 a go, and if it's still really weird and I'm not vibing with it, then I will just write it off. Now, the Night Angel series by Brent Weeks. I read the first book years ago, really enjoyed it, reread it in I think 2018, 2019, still really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people find Brent Weeks to be a bit of a problematic author, but I've said this multiple times, I separate art from artists, so, you know, I can admit J.K. Rowling is an absolute piece of garbage, but Harry Potter will always hold a very special place in my heart, and that's never going to change. And I'm never going to stop preaching about Harry Potter and how much I love it, even though the author is a piece of garbage. Same with Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. He's an absolute douchebag, but Ender's Game is a childhood movie that I absolutely loved, and still do to this day. So there we are. Now this next one, I people are going to hate me for, but The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I own everything that has been published up to date. So I own up to Rhythm of War and the couple of novellas in between as well. I have read The Way of Kings Part 1 and Part 2 and loved it. Then just never continued. I will have to go back and reread The Way of Kings, because from what I can remember, there's an awful lot that goes on, a lot of political intrigue, a lot of world building, a lot of characters were introduced to, and I need to have a good refresh. So the way I'm aiming to do that, I'm aiming before the summer to reread The Way of Kings, and then in the second half of the year read Words of Radiance, and then read Oathbringer and Rhythm of War next year, so that by the time we get the next book, the next couple of books, I will be up to date. The Quest for Heroes by Stephen Orion. Now, I read The Coward. I've read The Coward a few times, and never. I got an arc of the second book from the publisher before it came out, and I just never got around to it. I did have some health issues at the time, and I did inform the publisher that I wasn't going to be able to read it before it came out. But I still have the second book, a physical arc and a digital arc, and I haven't picked it up. And I think it's because when you read The Coward, it reads like a complete story. The first book could be a standalone and I'd be happy. So I wasn't sure a second book was necessary, and being as it takes place a little while after the first one, I was like, do I really want to read this and potentially spoil the experience of the first book? But it's quite, I would say it's kind of like really soft Joe Abercrombie. So if you want morally grey characters, questionable choices, but not as dark as Joe Abercrombie goes, then Stephen O'Ryan is a good bet. The Finlay Donovan series of El Cosamana. My book club, read, and Finlay Donovan is killing it, and I actually, for it being a very comedic novel, I really enjoyed it. We are reading Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead in May. We always pick a few months ahead, so that is our May read. So yes, I will be getting to those before the end of the year. Even if the third book isn't picked as a book club read, I will be finishing the series before the end of the year. So currently we're at 42 series and not one has been published. Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. Right. I think it's called Of Mermaids in Arisha or something like that, the actual series name is, but so I read Skin of the Sea. Again, mermaids, a lot of mythology, and really enjoyed it. Cliffhanger at the end was great. And then just never read Soul of the Deep. So I will be reading Soul of the Deep. The Frozen Heart series by Daylighter. Now, I read Frozen Hearts and Death Magic, and I adored it. Like, the magic system, the characters, the various romances, on board with it all. And I have Iron Hearts and Dragon Magic. At the minute, I think that's all that's out. I don't know whether there's going to be more books or whether it's just going to be a duology, but that is on my TBR for this year. Take Them to the Stars by Sylvain Neuvel. Obviously, I've got Until the Last of Me on my TBR for this month, and either this month or early in April I will be reading for the first time again, so that will be concluded. The Bone Spindle by Leslie Vedder. I have read The Bone Spindle and The Seventh Thread, so as of right now I am up to date with that series, so I've marked it as complete for now, since I don't know when the third and final book is coming out. Same with the Seven Faces Saint series by M.K. Lobb. I read the first book as part of a blog tour, really enjoyed it, kind of soft Nevernight vibes, but I've marked it as complete because I don't know when the next book will be coming out. The Linked series by Cassie Swindon, so I read Scorched. I have the other two books on my Kindle, so we'll be getting to that. Soul Stories by Mary Lynn Julien, 4 very short companion novellas. I read the 4th one, Begin Again, for the blog tour, and I have the other 3, so we'll be getting to those. It's just like breaking it up probably between bigger books. The Nick and Holly series by Dana Isali. This is complete. I have read all 5 books. Absolutely adored them. If you're looking for a wholesome age gap romance, with Silver Fox, absolute divine. I will also be finishing the Games We Play series by Dana Isali, because I read Games We Play. The second book was at the time, but now there's 5 books in that series, so I will be finishing that eventually. The Momo Arashima series by Misa Sugihara. The first book, Momo Ashura Seals Sword with Wind, is currently the only book out in that series. It's a middle grade fantasy series based around Japanese mythology, and Japanese folklore. So I will be continuing that, but that is also marked as complete for now. Then we have the Sweet Temptation series by L.M. Monkford. I basically binge read that trilogy yesterday, so that has been completed. And the final series at the minute I have is Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. So The Trials of Morrigan Crow is actually the book club pick for March. So I'll be reading that, and then obviously Wondersmith and Hollowpox. So we'll be getting to those at some point. I think I will do a check-in with my series about halfway through the year, when I do my kind of 6-month review of what I've been reading. So yeah, stay tuned and see if I can actually finish some of these before the end of the year.